since I hired you, okay, the practice is set to, at minimum, produce 10 times. This is increase, okay, what I paid you.
Welcome, Dr. Navarro. I've been really looking forward to this conversation. This is part of our video testimonial series where we get to talk with doctors just like you have worked and gone through the Dentist Partner Bros services. And so I just want to say thank you. Thanks for finding some time, and let's jump into this conversation.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Dr. Navarro, why don't we just give a little bit of context for anybody that watches this video? So tell me a little bit about you, your practice, and what brings us to our meeting today.
Sure. Okay. So general dentist, I've been practicing for a little over 16 years now. I've gone in various directions with my career, from public health to being a partner in very large DSO to being individual practice owner now. And it's going out and doing your own thing, acquiring a practice, like it's scary, right? And so that's where you all came in. Kind of give me a little bit of a parachute to make that jump with, you know.
Yeah.
And so my practice is pretty big, multiple associates. There's kind of two parts to the practice. We have our general practice, and then we have a Medicaid-based special needs practice. And you've all been instrumental in the development of all of that.
Yeah, I love it. So walk me back. I mean, our journey is kind of interesting because you originally met Bob, who's one of the founders here, when you were looking to join a practice and acquire a practice. And then he kind of walked you through the process of becoming that associate and then buying out the current owner.
Yeah.
And then and then you were now we'll start the story at that point. You're now the practice owner. What was going through your mind, and what kind of led us to the point where you reached back out and said, hey, I might need some help with this?
For sure. Really, what was going through my mind was a couple of things. One of them was, oh no, what do I do? Because the practice owner that I acquired the practice from, our agreement, the intent was he was going to be on for a year and a half, 2 years, and we slowly transition. And then, a few months later, some medical issues popped up that were really kind of unforeseen on both of our ends. And so it was like, okay, I have this very large practice that I just acquired, very large debt load. I don't know how I'm going to manage this thing all alone. And then looking ahead, I don't want to be in my partner's shoes, right? Like, I don't want a doctor to tell me one day, hey, you've worked too hard, your body's broken down, you can't work anymore. And just looking back and knowing the process that Bob put me through in coming and joining this practice, I knew that was, I didn't call her, I didn't ask around, I didn't get quotes, I just picked up the phone, hey, Bob, I need you, man, and so it was just a natural thing. And it all came down to, meeting Bob, going through the onboarding process and the vetting process and all of the amazing things in the matchmaking process you all do, that made me feel super comfortable. Because the other thing is, I said it's twofold. The number two thing is, I myself have done a great deal of practice consulting in various settings. And with that, in the way I consult with people and advise people, have confidants, have a team, build a team, I didn't want to consult for my own practice, essentially. I wanted somebody else to come in and give me their perspective, because now I'm the owner, right? And that can kind of cloud your vision sometimes, right? And so I knew that I could trust you. I could trust your team, just because of the relationship I've had for almost 4 years now with your company, So
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, you hit on a few points that a lot of practice owners feel, which is one, not all of them have the same awareness of like, I have a horse in the race and this is my practice. And sometimes as a practice owner and a business owner, we can make clouded emotional decisions, which don't serve us long term. And so you were feeling some of that. And because you've experienced what it's like on the flip side of being able to consult and help others, you recognize very quickly of, hey, there's other people that might be able to help me do this better.
yeah,
But you were also faced with all the overwhelming of, I'm a practice owner now. I've got a team to lead. I'm building out these new projects. And on top of that, I need to recruit and find people so that I don't find myself sitting in the same position the owner was, which is his body was breaking down and he couldn't serve his patients and he couldn't work as long. And that's not where you want it to be.
correct. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Because I knew I had the hand skills, I had the fortitude, I had the drive. I just acquired this practice, all of that to keep it going in the meantime, right? But that's, burning the candle at both ends and, having to separate the emotional energy, right, from point of care with the patient. Hey, former doctor's gone, you know, I'm here for you. Don't worry about it. It's going to be all good. Here's where I envision taking the practice, like doing all that stuff and like selling myself essentially. That takes a lot and it's very draining. So then to turn around at some point in the day, flip the switch and start thinking about, okay, let's find associates. Let's make a plan. Let's do onboarding, all this stuff. It would have been too much,
Yeah.
and I didn't make this move with the intent of this is my a swan song, if you will. Like, let's get Bob always says keep the end in mind, right?
Yep.
And so it's been that way from the beginning, and so I didn't want to have this like bad taste in my mouth right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of practice owners that find themselves 10, 15 years in your same position, and they still haven't been able to crack the code of how do I replicate myself? How do I actually, in essence, buy back some of my time and make sure
Mhm.
that I'm also serving my practice to the best ability, but also serving and taking care of myself and my family and all
Yeah,
these things.
for
So forward, we reach out, we begin working together. You've said you felt totally confident because of your previous experience working with us, and we had kind of mapped out, hey, this is how we're going to work with you. What was that experience like for you now, still in the same exact shoes, slammed, very, very busy, running basically a 2 doctor practice by yourself, but working with us and us kind of handling that? What was that experience from your perspective?
From my perspective, it was a breath of fresh air, really, because I knew you all were doing your thing while I was doing my thing.
Yeah.
And really, looking back and really making that decision, right? Because it was, okay, let me reach out to Bob. Bob says, hey, I'm going to introduce you to Brighton. He's going to kind of show you what we have planned. You sent me a very good PowerPoint presentation that essentially had it all mapped out. And then it's okay, decision time. Am I going to sign on the dotted line or not? Um, and the breath of fresh air is in that really I don't do anything like this. I don't create any kind of partnership unless I feel like this person is going to be part of this practice or this group or company,
Yeah.
whatever. And so it's very similar to my CPA is, hey, you may as well have an office in the building. Uh, and so knowing that and again, it came from experience, right? The previous owner had already engaged you, had already, had a contract with you, all of that. But going through and feeling as good as I felt about the situation and making that decision, because I made a complete career change. I
Yeah.
was a partner in a national DSO and I had ownership in 5 dental practices. And I decided enough is enough. I'm out of here. What's next? And so I took a big leap of faith initially, which made it so that when it was now time to sit in another seat at the table, you all are still at the table, really. And so it's like, okay, how are we gonna grow our relationship with our company and yours, right?
Yeah.
And so from that end, I just had all the trust in you to be another person on our team, someone else essentially on the payroll, right? Um,
Yep.
and so from that end, it's like, yeah, I know you're doing it, you're putting the ads out on the listservs, you're doing all this stuff. Let me just focus on my patients.
Yeah, I love that. That's exactly how we like to frame our relationships with our clients is we're now your recruiting partner. Like we are your team. You need anything, you come to us, we're going to take care of it. Like you focus on your team, your practice, your patients, and we'll take care of all the legwork, all the heavy lifting, all the vetting, all that stuff so that you can just do what you do best, which is taking care of your practice and your patients.
Yeah.
And so we get to the end there and we end up finding not just one but two amazing dentists for you, and that was quite the journey of like, okay, which one do we bring on board? And you're like, well, let's do both. And so you brought on Judith and you brought on Alma, and it's been almost a year. It's been almost a year that since Alma joined. And tell me, what has that done for you, having two dentists in the practice that you feel like you could trust, you knew were a right fit, and just describe what that did for you as a practice owner.
Really, what that did for me, and that was a big decision, right? Because at the time, it's two-doctor practice,
Yeah.
but knowing the process again, and knowing that, okay, if it's a yes on any candidate, let alone two, we got to figure out how to make it work. And so we weren't quite ready for the two doctors, but what taking that additional leap of faith allowed me to do was really become the dental entrepreneur that I know I can be and have been in various settings, but not having true ownership, you
Yeah.
know, um, to where we expanded the practice. We developed the side where we're seeing patients with special needs, and that just thinking of that in and of itself makes me a little choked up. Okay, because I just found out last week in discussing with one of our regional partners that sends us patients with disabilities, that this part of the practice is essentially where I'm sitting now, that's dedicated solely to individuals with developmental disabilities, is the only solo practice of its kind in the whole state of California.
Wow.
And so I sit and I think about, okay, working with you all, having the understanding that, okay, it might be scary taking on two doctor salaries when we maybe are not quite ready for it. But the feeling is like, hey, we need to do this. We don't know why, but we need to do it. But here we have this practice that didn't even exist. Like the concept hasn't even existed yet, right? And we're able to do that because I've got the other two doctors sitting on the other side of the building. Well, not necessarily sitting because they've become very busy. Um, and I know that they're handling it. And so really I could lift out and be that entrepreneur, that business owner, where, not necessarily chair side all the time, but being able to sit down and, okay, let's look at metrics. Let's look at where we can enhance, where we can have a bigger reach. How can we take better care of our staff, right? What processes can we put in place to maybe save a little cash here so that we could disperse among the team, because ultimately it comes down to that as well. And we really haven't touched on that very much, but your engagement with the team and getting their buy-in and everything is like, I don't know how many times I say, well, remember Brighton said, or remember Bob said, just to bring it back, like, hey, we have this foundation. We have this group that's looking out for us and helping us grow this thing. So not only are we going to have a much bigger reach for the community, for people that maybe didn't have a dental office they could even go to before, and patients with disabilities, but also will be rewarded, right? If this practice grows, that's opportunity for all of us to grow. And then when it comes time for us to retire, be sitting in a much better position than we would have had we not gone this route with your team, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, there's not a lot of practice owners like you, Isaac. So I will give you huge kudos that looked at this and looked at it as a growth opportunity and said, this is a real opportunity to be able to, frankly, bless your community with high quality dental services, but also to create an environment that people enjoy working in and enjoy coming to. And you took that risk on and said, we're going to figure out a way to make this happen. And a lot of practice owners get caught up in this fear that there's not enough pie to go around. You
Yeah,
know, Bob and I talk all the time about, hey, we can always grow the pie, and there's so much more to be able to give. But if you're a practice owner and you have more of that scarcity mindset of like, I got to make sure I eat first, and I'm always taking care of me first, bringing on an associate is probably not for you. But if
mhm,
you're approaching it with the mindset that you have, and of like, no, we're going to grow this, we're going to do it together, I'm going to build them up. It's amazing what you can do, because now you've said we've built a whole nother aspect to our practice. We're serving the state of California in a
yeah,
totally different way that we honestly, you didn't expect. And it's allowed you to be able to tap into more of your talents and things that you enjoy doing. On top of, it's not that you eliminated chairside, because you still like being chairside and you're
yeah,
doing it in a different way. And it's just opened up all these things.
yeah,
On top of all that, you're building an incredible asset that is now less risky because you've diversified yourself out of being the sole producer.
absolutely.
And that's huge. That's huge. If anybody's really considering, if I want to get out of my practice, you have a natural exit strategy now with the two people you're already in, and you're planning to bring them in as partners eventually. And
Yeah.
so all of that is just incredible, incredible things that have resulted. And we're super grateful to have been able to play a part in that. But just as much of what we've done is even more so what you've done. I've loved we've loved working with your team. For those that aren't familiar, we start by we get to know you and we get to know your team. We interview them, we meet with them, and we take that all that feedback into finding out who's going to be the right fit. And then when it's time to bring on the doctors, we get their feedback again after they've been there on site. And then if they want us to, we, like you have, we've stayed engaged now for 12 months after they've hired. We've helped you onboard them. We get feedback from your team every month, figuring out what's going well, what's not going well. And all that has helped create a much more, from our perspective, those that employ this onboarding system see a lot more success in building a healthy relationship with their associates, because it just creates a space for you to do that. Would you agree? Like, what have you seen on your end?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because it's and again, looking at past settings where I've been either a director, an owner, or whatever, had many direct reports. I mean, at one point in time in my career, I had 70 people on my team, right? And so um this really, both coming into this practice as the associate, then acquiring the practice, and then engaging your team in, okay, let's continue, let's keep the ball rolling, like just create a wheel, right? A positive life cycle, right? um it's the most I would say it has the most gravity out of any situation I've ever been in, where
Mm,
the two doctors, by the time they started, we we're in a little bit of a smaller community. We're not in a small town by any means, but those doctors, before they were even here in the practice, we were able to establish connections between all three of us,
yeah,
right? um Similar workplaces, uh you know I worked with family members of them, all these things.
yeah,
um so when they came on, it was very similar to, like, it's almost like they've always been here, and you get the team so prepared, because anytime you bring on a new provider, really anybody on the team, right, there can be so much angst, because let's face it, in dentistry, you got to be really passionate about the profession to stay in the
yeah,
profession, right?
for sure.
And so everybody has their little bubble, and their happy place or whatever that they have found in their practice, if they've been there for any considerable amount of time, some new face rocks the boat, you know, but we've never really had that. Have we had new, the little bit of angst or, oh, this doctor works a little different than Navarro, whatever? Sure. But being guided through each step, it's almost like you guys are relationship counselors, right?
For sure.
It's like, you see a young couple that's getting ready to get married, and you tell them, hey, go to marriage counseling. They're like, we don't need marriage counseling. You'll think of that 10 years from now, all right? Like,
Yeah.
it's healthy counseling, and so that's really where the experience has been, is like, it's just been so natural, every bit of it. And then that helps too with some of the fears of expansion. It's not cheap to expand a dental office. And,
Yeah.
there have been plenty of times where my accountant, my banking partner, they're like, what, are you out of your mind? And I go, no, I'm not out of my mind, but I can see something maybe you can't see. And so let's create an I told you so opportunity, and it's worked out. It's worked out every step of the way. And there's been angst, and there's been anxious times, whatever, but that's in any business, right? And so yeah, it's just been so natural. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Well, this has been a total pleasure. Thanks for finding the time. I hope that anybody that gets the opportunity to watch this finds it valuable, if anything, if not inspirational, based on just your journey and the practice that you're building. If somebody is watching this right now, what would you tell them, Isaac? What advice would you give them?
They just do it. Listen to your gut always first, but then just believe in yourself, believe in the process, and you just got to do it, because it's dollar for dollar value. I honestly, like, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. The ROIs, I mean, it's almost difficult to actually calculate. I mean, if you just based on what you've invested in working with us, and then what the two associates you brought on and brought to your practice, and what they will bring over the lifestyle, it's almost impossible to calculate. But when you have that growth mindset like you do, that works really well. That works really well, because you see there's so much more upside to be able to work and bring on the right partner for your practice. So
Let me do a quick calculation and then we'll end.
okay.
Won't talk specifics or whatever, because times change. So looking at year one versus year two, okay. Since I hired you, okay, the practice is set to, at minimum, produce 10 times, this is increase, okay, what I paid you a year ago.
There you go.
and I got the numbers to prove it. It's I'm not getting reimbursed or anything. Do this.
Yeah.
I just believe in it this much. And so, just think about, if somebody told you, hey, give me $10, I'll give you 100 back.
Yeah.
Would you do it? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, that's perfect. We'll end on that. Isaac, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate your time, and hopefully somebody finds this really helpful.
Sure. All right. Thanks so much.